whose kids can catch almost everything, especially a cold. Meaning you. You're the one we made my Walgreens for. Join and get 30-minute pickup at Walgreens.com.
For people living with HIV, keep being you and ask your doctor about Biktarvy. Biktarvy is a complete one-pill, once-a-day treatment used for HIV in certain adults. It's not a cure, but with one small pill, Biktarvy fights HIV to help you get to and stay undetectable. That's when the amount of virus is so low, it cannot be measured by a lab test. Research shows people who take HIV treatment every day and get to and stay undetectable can no longer transmit HIV through sex.
Serious side effects can occur, including kidney problems and kidney failure. Rare, life-threatening side effects include a buildup of lactic acid and liver problems. Do not take Biktarvy if you take dofetilide or rifampin. Tell your doctor about all the medicines and supplements you take if you are pregnant or breastfeeding, or if you have kidney or liver problems, including hepatitis. If you have hepatitis B, do not stop taking Biktarvy without talking to your doctor. Common side effects were diarrhea, nausea, and headache.
If you're living with HIV, keep loving who you are and ask your doctor if Biktarvy is right for you.
I've heard thousands of spectacular love stories in my bridal career. These rings tell the story of what we all dream of. One brilliant love.
Express your extraordinary love. Save 20% store-wide. Jared, love brilliantly.
Our health matters more than ever. That's why the new MyWW Plus is our most holistic weight loss program ever.
The app helps you take the food you have and gives you creative ideas for meals.
You can choose any workout you want to fit with your time frame. There are a ton of zero-point foods that I love. I never feel restricted.
With the new tools, my mindset has completely changed.
More holistic, more personalized, more weight loss.
The new program from WW, Weight Watchers Reimagined. Join now, pay later. Get your first 3 months free. Ends February 15th.
I'm proud of my guys. Reese graduated, Haley graduated.
They've earned this celebration.
We must realize that no arsenal or no weapon in the arsenals of the world is so formidable as the will and moral courage of free men and women. It is a weapon our adversaries in today's world do not have. Let that be understood by those who practice terrorism and prey upon their neighbors.
Hey, you know, on this show, keep it real. We like to keep it real, y'all.
America is already in a state of war with the Soviet Union.
Are Soviet spies living among us?
52 American citizens have been taken hostage at the American embassy in Tehran.
Shut up and hit me.
An unnamed White House official claims that a Cold War disaster
Your
could
boy,
be just around the corner.
President Rogue, gaming.
Mr. President, we have two names linked to the hostage situation. Arash Coldwar and Qasim Javadi. Just give the word.
It's time to send a message. There will be no more hostages.
You sure we can trust the police, Adler?
This guy's done more for less. He'll look the other way.
No.
The question of who murdered Allison Parker and Adam Ward was answered almost immediately after their deaths. The question of why Bryce Williams acted out in rage, the gunman himself. But as Deborah Roberts told us in 2015, the question of what could have been done to prevent him from pulling the trigger is far more complicated.
Days after the fatal shooting in Roanoke, Virginia, the spot where Allison Parker and Adam Ward were cut down has been marked by these new wooden planks. As is often the case after a shooting, there are renewed calls for gun control. But what can an employer do to uncover potential red flags and block someone like Williams from the workplace?
Hiring is a high-stakes game. It always has been. Every single HR person has stayed up at night worried about an employee coming in with a gun.
Former human resources executive turned career consultant Cynthia Shapiro isn't at all surprised that Williams was able to land job after job despite his poor work record.
There are ways to camouflage it. Employees who've been terminated can, They can take the job off of their resume. They can go by a different name. References can be manipulated. I think companies are running pretty lean. Background checks are expensive. And it doesn't always turn up what you need to know.
In fact, she says most employers continually disclose as little as possible to avoid potential lawsuits.
What most companies do today is they only give what we call in human resources rank, file, and serial number, which means you're going to get title held, dates of employment, and that's it. It would be really nice if you could say, watch out for this person or what have you, but that opens the company up to a lawsuit. Retaliation really does happen.
That was a concern for current WDBJ General Manager Jeff Marks.
It crosses my mind every time we terminate an employee. It doesn't happen often in our organization. I like to think that we screen well, but we can make mistakes.
Before Williams' arrival at WDBJ, his journalistic career seemed to be in a downward spiral. Remember, he'd been fired and filed a lawsuit against the Tallahassee station where he worked for nearly a year. Don Schaefer was the news director there.
He was confronting people, or he would get in people's faces, where he would get in people's personal space and get up and really confront people. Have a good night.
There's a fine line between allowing an employee to move on and get another job and learn from a termination and get rehired somewhere, and someone who is a danger.
WDBJ tells us his job application had two names, Mr. Flanagan and Bryce Williams.
Bryce Williams, WDBJ 7.
And they checked him out.
So, as Bryce Williams, he had a relatively clean history. The job application was going through the HR process, and we checked for criminal record, driving record, none of which came back with any glaring issues.
Dan Dennison, the news director who hired Williams at WDBJ, says the one thing that would have been a clear red flag, that tumultuous time in Tallahassee, was absent from Williams' resume.
As I recall, one of his TV stations, the one that he sued in Florida, I'm not sure he actually put that on his resume.
And Williams held several jobs after that.
He had worked for, I believe, a .com in the Bay Area, and we had contacted them, and they gave him glowing reviews.
But what about that discrimination lawsuit he filed back in Florida?
That wouldn't necessarily come up on a background check. If it didn't go anywhere, if it was settled out of court, or if there wasn't enough to move forward, these things do become public record, but only at a certain point.
Plus, the lawsuit was settled 12 years earlier in a pre-social media world.
There's a lot of information that a potential hiring manager would love to know, but the incentive is to not give it because companies have to protect themselves.
Every company, including this company, has rules about what you can say about people when they call to check it out. And basically, we are told it's, the amount of time they worked here and when they left.
Do people deserve a second chance? Did he have credentials for what we were hiring them to do? Absolutely. Do we deal with people who have argumentative natures and do great work? Yes. Unfortunately, in this case, he had an argumentative nature and did not do good work.
Though there are laws in place that allow employers to be honest about a past employee, Shapiro says they don't offer enough assurances.
There are a lot of employees who get fired unfairly. Those aren't the ones we're talking about. The ones we're talking about are people who have exhibited behavior that really makes them a potential danger in the workplace. And it would be great if there was some kind of protection for companies to be able to disclose that.
As for the man who hired and fired Bryce Williams at WDBJ, he says workplaces could potentially be made safer if employers would be more transparent.
I do wish that you could get more information from former employers when you're looking at a prospective employee, because it might help save some lives.
For the two young lives lost, touching tributes. Their names memorialized on signs around town, and prayers for all who were affected by such a senseless tragedy.
It's going to be my mission to make sure that this kind of stuff doesn't happen again. It's got to stop. Allison was a journalist, and she loved what she did. If I can take anything away from it, if there's any solace for our family, it's that she lived a very full life at 24. She did a lot of stuff, and she lived life to the fullest. And she, when she died, happy.
Andy Parker went on to become an advocate for strengthening gun laws, joining the organization Everytown and speaking at public events. He says this work is his way of turning sorrow into action. After enduring 2 surgeries immediately after the shooting, in 2016, surviving victim Vicki Gardner was recovering from a 3rd. Her husband Tim tells us she's expected to make a full recovery. Meanwhile, TV station WDBJ has decided to create a memorial in front of their building honoring the life and work of Allison Parker and Adam Ward. And anchors Chris Hurst and Kimberly McBroom decided to finish one of the last stories Allison was working on, a series on hospice care. It was aptly named The Long Goodbye. I'm John Quinones. Please join us next time for another edition of 2020 on OWN.
A wealthy family.
We had the country clubs. We went to private school.
Memphis aristocracy.
They always took us to the ballet and to the symphony.
Trapped between 2 worlds.
You said he went over there to warn her.
A troubled son nicknamed Snowball.
Well, you know what arguing about cocaine.
Who made friends in bad places.
He wanted to be a black gangster.
A former debutante.
She was generous, she was kind.
Who turned up dead.
There was an enormous pool of blood in the dining room.
Just when you think the case is cracked.
The people who did it were cold-blooded, AMR.
Think again.
I thought, oh God, how can this happen?
Welcome to 2020 on OWN presents Homicide. I'm John Quinones. Tonight, a compelling story about a woman who was Memphis aristocracy. Her family ran successful businesses, walked the halls of Congress, and gave back to the city. She lived in a beautiful home on one of Memphis's grandest streets. But no one could have imagined the nightmare lurking behind her front door. Byron Pitts reports.
Everyone in Memphis knows something about the blues. The story of Emily Fisher is yet another one of those bittersweet songs that fill the bars and juke joints on Beale Street.
The woman's only 52 years old. Had everything to live for.
DNA acquits the innocent and convicts the guilty.
I don't know how anybody could tell what was the truth and what wasn't.
Emily Clyce Fisher was just about as deeply rooted in Memphis as one of the stately oaks lining the broad boulevards where she raised her family.
My parents were born and raised in Memphis, and their parents lived here and died here, so both of them were very much Memphis families. My mother was a true Southern girl.
Emily's father, Arnold Clyce, was a prominent local businessman. Her mother, Bert Meriwether Clyce, was an actress and well-known patron of the arts.
Anytime somebody came to town, a ballet dancer, or somebody who was going to act in a theater play or something, we put them on all the time. I didn't think of it as generous. I just thought of it as getting to know a lot of different people.
Is this old money Memphis? Is this comfortable Memphis?
Oh yeah, I mean, that's all I knew, of course. We had the country clubs and the housekeepers and it was.
That sounds more than comfortable.
Yeah, you're right, it was but I didn't think of it like that.
Rebecca Fisher grew up in a stunning mansion in a landmark neighborhood called Central Gardens.
Central Gardens was the comfortable side of Memphis. And if you drive around Memphis, there's lots of uncomfortable sides. So, yes, it was a nice part of town. In reflection, I feel like it was definitely of a world and of a time.
Well, there she is. There's Fish, Emily Clyce, Emily Meriwether Clyce.
Sandra Garner Ireland and Anne Clark Harris were Emily's classmates and best friends at Miss Hutchinson's School for Girls.
Tell me about Emily.
Well, the thing that I remember most about Emily was her laugh. It was a raucous, deep-throated, full body laugh, joy.
Her head back and laugh.
Just pure joy.
What kind of student was she?
Oh.
The best.
The best, yes. We cleared the dinner table every night so she could do her homework. She was not going to get anything other than an A, ever. She had the highest grades in math and Latin.
And it wasn't just her brains and blazing mane of red hair that made Emily a standout.
Her nickname was Fish. Oh, God, because she swam. She was strong, and she was a star athlete. Catherine Hepburn look.
That's what she looked. That was Emily.
She wasn't fussy.
Was there anything she couldn't do?
Not really.
One time when we were all together, she was complaining because her daddy had said anybody that's got 190 IQ ought to have better sense. The debutante ball, tell me about that.
3 of us wore strapless dresses, and Emily wore one that was one shoulder. And Emily had her same Emily hairdo. You know, just Emily like she always.
Good party. It was good.
And we had a good time. It was a great party.
What's not to enjoy?
Yeah.
At 19 years old.
Emily graduated at the top of her class before heading to the Northeast for college at Wellesley. By the time she was done, Emily had achieved 4 degrees: history, the arts, education, and accounting.
Someone said to Emily once, "Oh, Emily, you're so smart, you're never going to get a man." She was over 25, which in those days was probably getting a little old.
She was damn near ancient.
Yeah.
My son thought the same.
Emily did fall in love and married a man from another prominent Memphis family.
He was Hubert Frederick Fisher III.
Elegant name.
He had a really big personality. It was like, just large gestures, and he worked in computers.
Hubert and Emily had 2 children, Rebecca and Adrian.
Tell me about your brother, growing up.
Yeah, he was 4 years younger than me, and he used to call me Gaga because he couldn't say Rebecca.
In addition to raising her family, Emily served on the boards of the Memphis Symphony and Memphis Ballet. She was also active in various charities.
She participated in some of the outreach ministries of St. John's, the food bank in particular, and she was always interested in helping those who weren't as privileged as she was. She taught at Melrose High School.
She was the first white teacher.
Yeah.
Making a difference. She wanted to teach there, and she did.
Yeah, it was always, you go and help out.
To those who much is given, much is required.
Yes.
But Emily's life wasn't as rosy as it seemed. Her private life was more complicated. Her son Adrian was having serious problems.
He was always a little different.
Different how?
Lonely. Very, had trouble making friends at a very young age. And then he started having trouble in school with grades. And then he was kind of teased because he got a little chubby. They used to call him Tank. He was a big guy, and he had no real place that was successful.
Emily's son Adrian was becoming a social outcast. And to make matters worse, he had begun smoking marijuana and was expelled from private school in 7th grade.
I mean, pot isn't cheap. How did your brother pay for it?
He was talking about how he needed more allowance. Like, he'd make up all these stories. It was always about catering to him and taking care of him and not telling him no, and how can we make his life easier?
For a woman accustomed to striving and success in all things, Adrian's descent was sheer torture.
I would run into in a grocery store that was in our neighborhood locally, and I would always just say, "How's Adrian?" And she'd sort of roll her eyes and say, "Not much change."
Emily and Hubert decided to enroll Adrian in public school at Snowden Middle School. There he became best friends with a classmate named Aaron Williams.
Adrian was getting beat up by some guys, and Aaron come to his defense, kind of saved him, and they bonded from that point on.
Aaron's family lived in another neighborhood, a world away from Central Garden. But Adrian, it felt like he'd finally found a place where he fit in.
His mother, Aaron's mom, used to call Adrian her godson. And Adrian was so proud to feel like he belonged to that family.
He lived in 2 worlds.
He lived in 2 worlds.
He could be Central Gardens Adrian, white proper.
Yeah.
And he could be a brother from around the way. So was it race or economics that you think drew him to the other world?
At first it's who can I connect with here?
then it became definitely about being the white rich guy.
No matter what was happening behind closed doors with Emily's son Adrian, Emily always tried to put a good light on everything.
Did Emily ever talk about
No.
challenges, or she kept it to herself?
Yeah.
Very private in that
Yeah.
way.
You know, she wouldn't want to talk about that to me. She wouldn't want me to know that things were as bad as they were, I don't think.
Looking at pictures of her, she seemed burdened.
Weird. She was tired.
In February, Emily invited members of the Memphis Chamber Music Society to perform a winter recital in her lovely home. A week later, a 911 call by a neighbor shattered the silence on Central Avenue.
Mrs. Fisher had been injured in a robbery. And the police responded and found her. She was still alive, but she had multi-stab wounds.
With a lot of officers on the scene, I go to the side door. The first thing I saw was toxic blood from the kitchen, blood on the walls, the floor. There was a phone laying there and it was bloody, and I processed the phone and pressed, and then I go into the eating room, and that's where she was found underneath some stairs there.
My dad got on the phone and told me that Mama has been stabbed and she died.
Coming up, a horrifying discovery at the crime scene.
He had written, "I love you," in the blood on the floor. It might have been a heart.
Don't go anywhere.
Never stop showing up. Never stop creating like it's your last shot. To prove yourself all over again. Always give them style, grace, beauty. Keep making new waves for the people to dance to, like the Cadillac Escalade. We are luxury. We are the ultimate vibe. Yatu Sabe. That's true.
We believe in the power of helping hands. Teamwork that works. So you can find ways to stay close.
I'm not hungry! You're having one more bite. No, one more bite.
Craft for the win-win.
Kleenex Soothing Lotion. The only tissue with coconut oil, aloe, and vitamin E. Made to nourish skin. Kleenex brand. Made for all the moments.
Someday I'll ask you a question that will change me forever.
If you fall, he'll catch you. I will be waiting.
Start your Sunday with a ring from the Neil Lane collection. Available at K.
Is there a natural litter that actually works?
At Tidy Cats, litterventions come naturally. Naturally strong unscented with activated charcoal or scented clean lemongrass with plant extracts. 100% natural, 100% powerful. There's a Tidy Cats for that.
Every time I hit the beat, boom, 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 blah, 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 yeah, yeah, yeah. Makes me wanna move my feet.
The Moxie Shower Head Seeker. Only from Kohler.
Think I'll go for a walk outside now. The summer sun's calling my name. Everybody's smiling, sunshine day. Everybody seems so happy today. It's the sunshine day.
Your mom's been posting a lot since she got that phone from Cricket. Every day. Here's a comment. We stand.
Oh, Mom, you're the cool mom.
More phone? More fun.
Where is everyone? Pringles Original. Barbecue. Pizza. The barbecue pizza stack. countless flavors to stack.
That's Get Sick 2 Protection. Lysol Laundry Sanitizer kills 99.9% of illness-causing bacteria detergents leave behind. Proven to kill COVID-19.
Introducing new Extra Charge Coffee at Dunkin', because it's time for a little extra this year. Extra boost, extra kick, so we're extra good to go. New Hot and Ice Extra Charge Coffee with 20% more caffeine. Order ahead plus earn rewards. America runs on Dunkin'.
The new MyWW Plus is our most holistic weight loss program ever.
You can choose any workout you want to fit with your time frame. There are a ton of zero-point foods that I love. I never feel restricted.
The new MyWW Plus. Join now, pay later. Get your first 3 months free.
New Bailey's Deliciously Light. Yes. 40% less sugar and calories. Yes. Delicious. Oh, yes. And that, my friends, is what having it all looks like. Treat yourself with New Bailey's Deliciously Light.
We absolutely loved selling our house.
No, they didn't. It wasn't hard or stressful at all, Eyes. These are actors, hired to convince you that selling a house is easy. And this is you, trying to sell your home. A lot can go wrong. That's why you need HomeLight. HomeLight crunches the data from the top brokerages to identify the best agents who can sell your house faster and for more money. Or get real offers from verified buyers who will purchase your home in a matter of days. It doesn't matter how you want to sell your home. Selling starts at HomeLight.
You're right on time. You're dressed for the occasion and exactly where you should be. To join instructors like Nicole, here we go, Dallas, and all of us in celebration and satisfaction that lasts all day and all night. This party isn't about marks of status or status updates, but confidence, connection, a feel that moves you along after you stop moving. And done. Way to go. Visit EchelonFit.com.
Two young male blacks wearing old brown work clothes armed with a knife from the scene in 87 Oldsmobile station wagon that's blue.
Memphis was reeling after arts patron and socialite Emily Fisher's grisly murder in a mansion on Memphis's Gold Coast. The medical examiner called the murder the most gruesome he had ever seen.
People were in shock.
This is a vicious, heinous crime.
There was a lot of pressure to solve the case.
The whole house was covered in fingerprint dust. Black fingerprint dust everywhere. And blood everywhere.
Emily Fisher had been stabbed more than 50 times. In the head, chest, back, and arms.
She was strong. That's the reason I think she lived as long as she did with that many stab wounds.
Fisher had defensive wounds on both hands. There have been so many violent knife blows, the blade penetrated her lungs and brain.
What did it tell you as an investigator when someone is assaulted that violently?
Well, it's an overkill, and usually an overkill is some kind of hate involved.
There were no signs of forced entry. Someone in the house knew the attackers. Someone let them in.
Elderly housekeeper Leicester Redden had been beaten by the intruders, who were attempting to locate the family safe.
I think they felt like they could get Miss Fisher to open that safe if they put a knife to her.
The Fisher home had been ransacked. A box of Emily's jewelry was dumped on her bedroom floor. There were also bloodstains on her bedroom carpet.
Was there a murder weapon found?
No weapon was found on the scene. It was used in a homicide.
Any fingerprints recovered?
There was nothing identifiable. There was evidence that the offender had injured himself, which is real common in a multi-stabbing case. The hand slides down, the knife usually cuts the palm here.
The day after Emily Fisher's murder, investigators got their first big break.
There was a report that an officer had found a car in this area. It was definitely Miss Fisher's car.
Police recovered her station wagon in North Memphis, processed it for fingerprints.
Did it look like it had been vandalized?
Well, I mean, it was definitely rummaged through. We're looking for someone, who obviously would have a criminal record that would be capable of doing this, maybe involved in drug trafficking or a heavy drug user.
By that time, Emily Fisher's son Adrian had become a hardcore addict and was in rehab when his mother was murdered. His expression of grief when he returned home was haunting.
When we went to the house, there was this enormous
pool of blood in the dining room. And he had written, "I love you" in the blood. To me, it was like incomprehensible.
Bert had been frightened by her cousin Adrian before, riding in his red Bronco through one of the roughest neighborhoods in Memphis, called Klondike.
I just remember him sort of cruising. We were cruising. It was a big car with tinted windows. I didn't know the name of the neighborhood or where we were. I was a little scared. And I was a little bit nervous. People recognized the car, and they recognized him behind the wheel, and they were shouting out. They called him Snowball.
Did they seem to like him, respect him, or just know him?
I just remember them calling out, "Hey, Snowball."
A nickname for Adrian's chubby size, but also for his addiction to cocaine.
The white kid from the other side of the tracks who's hanging out with the brothers in Klondike.
Yes, that liked cocaine and crack. Mr. Fisher was a known drug addict in the community. Everybody in Klondike knew Snowball. They knew his truck, they knew his car, they knew he had money. So he was a party ride.
How did your parents feel about your brother's drug use? Were they fully aware? Were they in denial about it?
They didn't realize he was doing such heavy drugs until he was pretty deep in. It's just classic, the family around addicts just not wanting to see it. I mean, I just don't think they knew what to do. You know?
As detectives began their initial investigation, one of the first people they wanted to speak to was Emily's troubled son.
Why did investigators think that Adrian Fisher knew something about the crime?
I think he told one of the investigators that he was responsible for his mother's death, and I took that to mean that through his association with certain people.
And one of the first people Adrian told investigators about was George Tate. Tate was a drug dealer Adrian had met, done drugs with, and had been arrested with in Klondike. Adrian had also bragged to Tate about his parents' wealth, and even invited him to his parents' home, where Tate witnessed Adrian arguing with his mother. Investigators also interviewed Adrian's best friend, Aaron Williams, who said he was the one who had introduced Adrian to Tate. Next, fingerprints found in Emily Fisher's stolen car were identified as belonging to 29-year-old Rodney Blades.
They got a print off of a detergent bottle, and that was their first suspect.
He had a criminal history, so it was easy to identify the print.
Blades was a known crack addict, the same Klondike neighborhood where he'd grown up with George Tate.
There was a lot of things that connected him to this case. Happenstance things. The car, which was parked by his house.
Several items belonging to Emily Fisher were also recovered in Blades' possession.
They find the victim's purse in the car along with other items. They find out he's been selling items. So with the type of proof that we have, I definitely thought that we had the right people.
When housekeeper Lee Esther Redmond, the only eyewitness, was able to identify Blades and Tate in the photo array, George Tate and Rodney Blades were arrested and charged with first-degree murder.
This is a death penalty case, and the aggravating circumstances were the heinous nature of the crime and murder during perpetration of a robbery.
But there were major stumbling blocks, like the lack of solid forensic evidence, and blood found at the scene that didn't match the victim or two suspects in custody.
There's a suspect still at large based on the fact that we have unidentified blood.
And most vexing of all, why was Emily Fisher murdered in broad daylight in Central Gardens?
Where were you, Mr. Tate, in the house?
He was in the kitchen. I was in the kitchen the majority of the time while arguing with my mother.
Coming up, the state of Tennessee versus Rodney Blades and George Tate, live on Court TV.
What were you and your mother arguing about?
She wouldn't give me any money.
What did you want the money for?
Cocaine.
Don't go anywhere. Wasn't me, baby. No, it wasn't me, baby. Baby.
some other body, baby.
Free 2-hour grocery delivery, included with Prime.
When I dedicate my life to people, I dedicate my life.
Are you gonna kill him?
Perhaps we're here for more than just war.
Anyway, that's peace. It's power. Choose to look like Messiah Radar in theaters and streaming exclusively on HBO Max Friday.
The new Lexus IS is all in on style.
All in?
All in.
And all in on power.
This is what excellence looks like, people.
And this is what exhilaration feels like.
The new Lexus IS, all in on style, all in on performance, all in one package.
Like me.
Yeah, what's he about that?
The new Lexus IS.
Experience amazing at your Lexus dealer.
This program is brought to you in part by Nature's Way Sambicus. Choose Sambicus for traditional immune support.
Nature's Way believes immune health is a gift, one that has inspired us for over 50 years. It's why we bring you Sambucus, made from premium elderberries for quality immune support. Your wellness is personal. Make your way with Nature's Way Sambucus.
If you're thinking about going to school online, Southern New Hampshire University is where you belong. We've been online for more than 25 years and have helped thousands of students reach their goals. As a nonprofit university, we believe access to high-quality education should be available to everyone. That's why we offer some of the lowest tuition rates in the nation and haven't raised tuition in nearly a decade. So no matter where you want to go, SNHU can help you get there. Visit snhu.edu today.
Is meal-triggered indigestion causing discomfort, early fullness, bloating? Ask your doctor about non-prescription Eftigard. Taken before a meal, Eftigard helps manage meal-triggered indigestion. Enjoy eating again with Eftigard.
Now available at Walmart.
Why do Bombas socks feel so good? Is it because they're the most comfortable socks ever? Yeah, but it's also because when you buy a pair, we give a pair to someone in need. Thanks to you, we've donated over 40 million pairs. Visit bombas.com and get 20% off your first purchase.
It's my 410, no excuses on game day, migraine medicine. It's Ubrelvy for any time, anywhere migraine strikes, without worrying if it's too late or where I am. One dose of Ubrelvy works fast. It can quickly stop my migraine in its tracks within 2 hours, relieving pain and debilitating symptoms.
Do not take with strong 6-3-8-4 inhibitors. Most common side effects were nausea and tiredness.
Migraine hits hard. Hit back with Ubrelvy for any time, anywhere migraine medicine.
The secret to brighter, tighter skin? Clinically proven vitamin C. New Rock Revive and Glow Serum. Powered by our most potent vitamin C and peptides. 94% of women had instant radiance and improved firmness. And 100% had visibly brighter, tighter skin in 4 weeks. It's clinically proven. New Rock Revive and Glow Serum. And for 24-hour hydration, try our vitamin C gel cream.
Friday, own star-studded series returns. Sabrina Carr and Lamar Odom, Faith Evans and Stevie J, Myra Anderson and Big Sean, Tiana Green and Swaggy P, Heather and Will Packer. Hosted by Melody Holmes. Behind Every Man. Season premiere Friday, 9/8 Central.
Emily Fisher had grown weary of her son Adrian's drug addiction in the months leading up to her murder. She and her husband had rescued Adrian from crack houses, paid off his debts, and sent him to treatment centers. But nothing worked. As you're about to learn, he also impacted the search for justice. Once again, Byron Pitts.
The much-awaited capital murder trial with Emily Fisher's alleged killers made front-page headlines.
Everybody was following it. It was on court TV.
Was her skull cracked? Yes, it was. Was her brain penetrated? Yes, it was.
Aftershocks of one of the most sensational crimes in Memphis history. The victim knew the defendant. She knew who was stabbing her.
The killing of Miss Fisher was torturous. It was a prodding to try to make her give information.
Lead Shelby County prosecutor Jerry Harris was seeking the death penalty for 2 suspects, George Tate
Please point to Mr. Tate.
He's sitting right back.
And Rodney Blades.
I'm not saying I'm the best person in the world, but I'm not gonna kill him.
In fact, Rodney Blades had told police he'd seen two men drop off Emily Fisher's stolen car. He'd asked them if they were done with it, and they said yes. He said that's how he came to have Emily Fisher's handbag and why his fingerprints were in the car. But prosecutors didn't believe it.
If somebody went to the trouble of stealing that car and getting money, you think they're going to drop it off and give it to him?
Prosecutors also had the eyewitness testimony of Lee Esther Redmond, the elderly housekeeper who identified both Blades and Tate in a pretrial deposition.
Is that the person that hit Miss Fisher?
The defense argued her identification was flawed due to her advanced age and short-term memory loss.
Miss Redmond either would not give her correct age or did not know her correct age and went to the weight of the testimony about recollections at the time it occurred.
You don't recruit your witnesses from UCLA Film School. You find your witnesses on the scene.
She hit her hard when she fell, when she told you. What did she say? She said, oh, yes, and I said, oh, don't hit her, don't hit her.
What was your defense? The house was printed twice, and there was no proof against Rodney Blades or George Tate that they had been in the house.
How big a factor did Adrian Fisher play in this case?
Adrian was the center of the case. Everything swirled around Adrian, who he knew, who he brought into his parents' home, who knew that there was a safe.
A safe in his parents' home that Adrian bragged contained more than $200,000 in cash.
I remember when I found that she'd been killed, I went to bed that night, and I thought, this has to do with Adrian.
Why would your first thought be that your brother would somehow know something about your mother's murder?
It was somehow connected to his drug problem. I knew that right away.
He was in the case. You couldn't not call him.
Mr. Fisher, have you had a substance abuse problem?
It probably began at the age of 18 or 19 with alcohol and marijuana, and then progressed on to cocaine.
At this time, are your parents aware of your substance abuse problem?
They are. I began stealing money from them, forging checks, etc., etc. It was pretty obvious that I had a problem.
Adrian's father testified about the difficulty of treating his son's addiction.
Emily kept some of her jewelry in the safe, and it was not there. And we confronted Adrian with it. We told him it was an heroin. And he said, come on, Daddy. And I got in the car with him, and we went out to the stove there and bought the chain back.
Adrian also admitted his friendship with George Tate and others in the North Memphis neighborhood where he bought drugs.
Mr. Fisher, did George Tate ever have occasion to be in your parents' house on Central Avenue in Memphis?
He did.
What was the purpose of you and Mr. Tate going to your parents' house on Central?
I was going to attempt to borrow some money from my mother.
And what did you intend to do with that money?
Buy cocaine.
Adrian's testimony did not help the prosecution's case. Instead, it seemed to them like he was on the other side.
It was kind of like somebody had shot a hole in the bottom of the boat because his demeanor on the stand was kind of like, why am I here? I'm not going to rat on my friends.
Did Adrian's testimony backfire in the prosecution? I think the prosecution did not understand Adrian. His mother wanted him to have friends, and these were his friends.
We later learned that he had been talking to some of the defense on the telephone during the trial, and I figured that he tried to let them know of things that we said as far as trial tactics.
And then another setback for prosecution.
What the jurors found out was that there was blood in that household from someone other than these two defendants and other than the victim, suggesting there was somebody else in that household.
The unidentified blood at the crime scene definitely weakened my case.
But he had a lot of evidence. Just wasn't the right evidence.
The DNA evidence, the blood analysis, the fingerprints, and the footprints, none of that connects
It's a rotten place to spend time.
The status has more than met the burden of proof.
We'd like to ask and move for motion for judgment of acquittal.
The mood was not happy, and I was not confident. I didn't think the jury liked the case, and I really didn't think they liked me. I didn't think they trusted me, and that got me to the core.
If you find from the proof beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant or either of them is guilty of murder in the first degree, then it shall be your duty to determine whether the defendant or defendants will be sentenced to death, life imprisonment without possibility of parole, or life imprisonment.
The day of the verdict, what was the mood in the courtroom? Yeah, it was thick. There was a lot of tension. The courtroom remained packed.
After 4 days of testimony, the jury deliberated for 7 hours before delivering a verdict. Not guilty on all charges, citing insufficient evidence.
Did you believe that Blaze or Tate were involved in the case?
No, no way they were involved in this case.
Not at all?
No.
You had no doubt about it?
No doubt in my mind.
Because?
There was no evidence that they did it. None.
What was your reaction to the verdict, and not the not guilty verdict?
To think that this had happened to me and no one was going to be held responsible was unimaginable.
I thought, oh God, how can this happen?
Your reaction? Your client was found not guilty.
Believe. It's a lot of responsibility. If we had not won, Mr. Blaze may have been executed.
You try to be the best, and I didn't think I was the best in this, and it hurt. It tore my guts out.
And your brother, what was his reaction?
He was not fazed. He was like, yeah, the jury did a good job.
Your mother's murdered?
Yeah.
And the jury comes back with a not guilty verdict, and your brother says the jury did a good job?
The feeling I got was that he did not care one way or another that day.
20 months later, Adrian Fisher was dead from a cocaine and heroin overdose. At 24, he took any secrets that might have helped solve his mother's case to his grave.
I talked to him like a couple weeks before that. He called me and he just sounded really innocent and sweet. Like he was clean and clear. Probably would be considered a suicide because he was with a druggie, and the druggie guy who I talked to said he told him to slow down and he wouldn't. So he kept going, one more blowout before I go to rehab. And the guy kept telling him to slow down. He said, one more blowout before I go to rehab. So, I think too much caught up with him.
Coming up, after Emily Fisher's unsolved murder haunted Memphis for nearly a decade, a tip breaks the case wide open.
A person called me and just said, I know who killed Emily Fisher.
What's that? I treated my yeast infection with Thermoclear. Kills over 99% of yeast. All natural and organic.
Thermoclear, joie de hoo-ha. And new Thermoclear for herpes symptoms is at CVS.
Their love keeps you centered. This Valentine's Day, tell them with a gift from the Center of Me collection. Exclusively at K.
Ashley Home Store's biggest President's Day sale ever is going on now. Right now, shop incredible limited-time doorbuster deals. Or get no-interest financing for 6 years. Ashley Home Store. This is home.
This program is brought to you in part by Perrier, the original spark since 1863.
Perrier, the original spark.
I feel golden. I feel like glitter on my shoulders. I feel golden. I feel like,
Bold and refreshing since 1863. Everyone remembers the moment they heard, you have cancer, how their world stopped, and when they found a way to face it. For some, this is where their Keytruda story begins. Keytruda, a breakthrough immunotherapy that may treat certain cancers. One of those cancers is advanced non-squamous non-small cell lung cancer, where Keytruda is approved to be used with certain chemotherapies as your first treatment if you do not have an abnormal EGFR or ALK gene.
Keytruda helps your immune system fight cancer, but can also cause your immune system to attack healthy parts of your body. This can happen during or after treatment and may be severe and lead to death. See your doctor right away if you have new or worse cough, chest pain, shortness of breath, diarrhea, severe stomach pain or tenderness, nausea or vomiting, rapid heartbeat, increased hunger or thirst, constipation, dizziness or fainting, changes in urine or eyesight, muscle pain or weakness, joint pain, confusion and memory problems, fever, rash, itching, or flushing. These are not all possible side effects. Tell your doctor about all your medical conditions, including immune system problems, or if you've had an organ transplant, had or plan to have a stem cell transplant, or have lung, breathing, or liver problems.
Today, Keytruda is FDA approved to treat 16 types of advanced cancer and is being studied in hundreds of clinical trials, exploring ways to treat even more types of cancer. It's true. Keytruda from Merck. See the different types of cancer Keytruda is approved to treat at Keytruda.com and ask your doctor if Keytruda can be part of your story.
Hey there, I'm Jake, and a little thing I love about Chick-fil-A's new Grilled Spicy Deluxe is that grilled chicken that we all know and love with the grill marks. It's super juicy. The heat, the cheese, the multi-grain brioche bun, the flavor is just out of this world.
Hey, I'm Amber, and a little thing I love about the Chick-fil-A Grilled Spicy Deluxe is the chicken. This is not your traditional spicy chicken sandwich. You get the grilled flavor, seasonings, spices, married all together to this perfect sandwich. It's literally like fireworks in your mouth.
Let's start with all the dads who aren't exactly sports guys. Narrow it to all the non-sports dads who love watching sports in the rain. With kids who can catch almost everything, especially a cold. That brings us to you. You're the one we made my Walgreens for. An easier way to save, shop, and perhaps catch a break. Introducing my Walgreens. Join and get 30-minute pickup at Walgreens.com.
She wants him to eat something good this morning. He wants it to be 8 o'clock. So she came prepared with Nutri-Grain. Made with real fruit and whole grain kids will actually eat. Kellogg's Nutri-Grain. Come prepared.
For months, there were lingering questions about Emily Fisher's high-profile murder trial.
With the type of evidence that they had, I don't see how they could not have arrested Blades and Tate. On the other hand, there were unanswered questions in that trial, like that unidentified blood.
So the first trial ends not guilty verdicts, insufficient evidence. Case goes cold.
Yeah.
Not for months, but for years.
Years.
And then what happened?
And then Charles Shuttlesworth took up the case.
Charles Shuttlesworth was a retired Memphis detective. He had been hired by the Shelby County DA's office to take another look at the case.
I love investigating homicide. I love the challenge of it. And this was definitely a challenge. He was built for homicide investigation. He could get inside the mind of the slayer.
Shuttlesworth had honed his fighting skills as a young man in Memphis's boxing rings. Is that you?
Yep. I'm surprised you can't tell. Never give up. Never give up.
You're a pit bull in this case.
Once I get into these things, I'm a different person.
From what I've read, you ate, slept, drank this case once you got it.
Well, I did. I kept the case, the file beside my desk. Emily Fisher written on the side, so every day I would think about her. I'd always go by the house. I felt like a spiritual connection with her.
You have very little physical evidence. You have a blood sample you got no one to match it to, and you got reward money that the family's put forward, and you pass out a handful of flyers. That seems pretty thin to me.
Well, you got to start somewhere. It's sort of like a puzzle. So you start putting the puzzle together.
Emily's family offered a $20,000 reward, but after 6 years of digging, Shuttlesworth had turned up nothing. A local TV station broadcast a Crime Stoppers announcement in a last-ditch effort to generate new leads. Then, a break.
A person called me, a girl called me and just said, I know who killed Emily Fisher. And she gives me 2 names.
One of the names was familiar to investigators, Aaron Williams. Now 32, Williams had been the best friend of Emily Fisher's son, Adrian.
Emily had befriended Aaron and Aaron's family, I mean, they bought him a car. They paid for his wedding. He was one of the few close friends that Adrian had.
Oh, they were best friends, and they had a similar name, Aaron and Adrian, you know. And he was at our house a lot. I felt like my parents really turned to Aaron to help them. They would like seek his help when Adrian started doing cocaine.
Then Shuttlesworth's informant gave him a second name.
When she gave me the name Sean, I got real interested.
That name had never come up before, and Shuttlesworth had a hunch he was onto something. A new suspect, whose legal name turned out to be Alfred Turner. Turner, Williams, and the female informant were all living in the same small apartment building at the same time of Emily Fisher's murder.
He said both of them had a little bit of blood on them. And he said that Sean just looked like he was spaced out.
Turner's criminal report came back clean, but there was another piece of information the woman had. On Aaron Williams.
The month before Miss Fisher was killed, Aaron Williams robbed a Save-A-Line grocery store. He had pistol whipped the clerk, and she told me where he got the gun and what he did with it. And I'm thinking, I'll never find this witness after 9 years. I couldn't believe how fast I found this guy.
The store clerk identified Williams as the man who attacked and robbed him.
Based on that, I got a warrant for his arrest for this armed robbery.
During the interrogation, Shuttlesworth confronted Williams with everything he had discovered.
And I said, I know where you got the gun, and it's the same gun you used when you robbed Miss Fisher and killed her. He said, I didn't rob her, and I didn't kill her. I was there, but I didn't do it. It was Alfred Turner who did it. If he says anything different, he's lying. So I'm on the inside, I'm thinking, oh, thank you, Lord.
He folded like a cheap chair.
Yes, he did. It didn't take long. So, based on that, I had enough to get a search warrant to draw blood from Alfred Turner.
A week later, Shuttlesworth got a call from a woman who had run the DNA tests on Alfred Turner's blood.
He said, well, you got your man, it's a match. That's what you work for. It's that feeling. It's like the hunt's over, you know.
It brings a smile to your face even now.
Oh, yeah.
After 7 long years of false leads and endless dead ends, Alfred Turner's blood was a match with the unidentified blood found at Fisher's crime scene.
Once Mr. Turner's DNA shows up on the scene, he made the mistake a lot of criminals do. He said, I've never been in that house. Oops. He told a lie. There's only one person in the world that was bleeding in that house that day other than Miss Fisher, and that was the one who killed her. That was Alfred Turner.
He's now charged with killing Emily Fisher.
Coming up, a dark secret kept by Adrian Fisher to his death finally revealed answers about his mother's murder.
When you think about it, this whole thing really is about Adrian. None of this happens if he isn't in the situation that he's in.
Still your best friend, and now your co-pilot. Still a father, but now a friend. Still an electric car, just more electrifying. Still a night out, but everything fits in. Still hard work, just a little easier. Still a legend, just more legendary. Chevrolet, making life's journey just better.
Next time you carry out 3 topping Domino's pizzas for $7.99 each, try Domino's Carside Delivery. Just check in online and we'll quickly and safely bring out your food so you don't have to get out to get carry out. Like Denny here.
Hey Hamlin, I like your PJs.
Cue Rachel Ray.
Hey friends, today we're whipping up some delicious recipes. So, who's hungry?
Pets love Rachel Ray Nutrish and its kitchen-inspired recipes with real meat, poultry, or fish. Rachel Ray Nutrish. Real recipes, real ingredients, real good.
All right, breakfast is ready.
Whoops. Well, this is awkward.
Can't believe this is your life right now? Hey, you're still winning when you wake up with Thomas's.
Ready to face the truth? Just one jar of Olay Regenerous has 4 times more hydrating power than the $400 cream. For skin results you'll see, or your money back. Olay. Face anything. For even more hydration, try Olay Serum.
Introducing new Extra Charge coffee at Dunkin', because it's time for a little extra this year. Extra boost, extra kick, so we can get it extra done. New Hot and Iced Extra Charge coffee with 20% more caffeine. Order ahead plus earn rewards. America runs on Dunkin'.
For unbeatable natural looking color, nice and easy cream. 100% natural looking color that lasts 8 weeks. Gentle on your hair and scalp with conditioning in every step. Nice and easy cream. Nicer and easier.
I'm not hungry! You're having one more bite. No, one more bite.
Kraft for the win-win.
For all the sniffles, sneezes, and super dad snack times, choose Kleenex Ultra Soft Tissues. Made for extra comfort, 3 layers strong. Kleenex. For all the moments.
Crafting our authentic fragrances begins with ingredients from the earth to create fragrances infused with natural essential oils. Airwick Scented Oils connect to nature.
The new MyWW Plus is our most holistic weight loss program ever.
You can choose any workout you want to fit with your time frame. There are a ton of 0-point foods that I love. I never feel restricted.
The new MyWW Plus.
Join now, pay later. Get your first 3 months free.
I'm proud of my guys. Breeze graduated, Haley graduated.
They've earned this celebration.
Oh, Lord. Here comes Wanda. Wait, let me tell you something. Uh-oh.
Why don't you talk about my kids?
I'm not even talking to you. Is that my mom? You are disrespectful. No.
Anybody got any popcorn?
We could have ate at the house if it's just the 3 of us. Love and Marriage Huntsville, Saturdays, 9/8 Central.
Non-attorney spokesperson. This is a paid advertisement for legal services sponsored by Nightline Legal. Cases assigned on a random basis to participating law firms. If you or a loved one were recently diagnosed with any form of lung cancer or mesothelioma, call right now. You may be entitled to financial compensation. Even if you smoke, your lung cancer or mesothelioma may have been a result of exposure to asbestos, and you may qualify for a cash award from the $30 billion in trust funds set aside for lung cancer and mesothelioma victims and their families. For decades, those who work in the Navy, shipyards, mills, carpentry, firefighting, roofing, insulation, construction, and automotive industries may have unknowingly been exposed to asbestos and have an increased risk in developing lung cancer or mesothelioma. If you or a loved one were recently diagnosed with lung cancer or mesothelioma, even if your loved one has already passed, call right now. Your family still may be entitled to a cash award without ever having to go to court. There are time deadlines to file a claim, so don't wait. Call right now.
Call 1-800-579-4223.
A decade after Emily Fisher's murder, a second high-profile murder trial dominated Memphis headlines.
What was the cornerstone of the prosecution strategy?
Cornerstone was DNA. DNA acquits the innocent and convicts the guilty. And we have uncontradictable proof that Alfred Turner was in the house that day and he was bleeding.
In exchange for a 1-year sentence, Aaron Williams cut a deal and pled guilty to accessory after the fact. Williams testified he'd gone to the Fisher home with Alfred Turner to warn them drug dealers were looking for Adrian because he owed them money. Emily Fisher opened the door to Williams, her son's best friend since middle school.
What do you think actually happened?
I think Aaron went over there with maybe a con story to try to get some money. His rent was due. He said the next thing you know, he could hear her screaming and hollering and saw Alfred Turner chasing her across the room, stabbing her.
Williams said he grabbed the car keys and ran outside and began to leave in Emily Fisher station wagon. Turner jumped in beside him with Emily Fisher's purse, a bloody knife, and a deep gash in his hand that he was trying to stop from bleeding.
He put his hand down and looked under the bed, and when he did, he left the blood stain there. And going out the door, he left the arrest warrant for himself right there on the door.
That news was bittersweet for Emily's daughter, Rebecca, whose nightmarish memories always take her back.
Did you hear the voicemail your brother Adrian left the day your mom was murdered?
I did. All I heard was him cry and say, oh my God, and I heard the phone drop. I didn't think anything of it until I went to the preliminary hearing of Alfred Turner, and Aaron Williams talked about how my mom went to the phone to call Adrian. And then I realized, like, oh, he knows something happened, and he called back.
He knew about it and kept quiet about it.
I just thought, oh, it's just part of the pain of it all. Like, of